Is it recording?
It is.
All right, here we are on The Blind Man in Black, and I'm here with actor, director, playwright, producer, and co-founder of Breath of Fire. Is that correct?
I'm the founding artistic director.
The founding, and your name is Sara Guerrero. Um, and thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Brian. It's great to be here. Here.
Here, here in this work. By the way, you can swear. I didn't mention that when I was doing the
Oh,
prep.
I did. I just assume I could.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that that's that you feel comfortable with that. I want it to be a very
Are you gonna swear?
vulgar space.
Are we gonna get to have like a close out with all the swearing words you can think of and say in like 30 seconds?
We could.
And you could do it in different languages if you so desire.
Yes. Let's do that at the
And
end.
gestures as well.
I won't be able to see them, but you can gesture all you want for everybody who's watching and listening. But we
Wonderful.
should note that you and I went to CalArts together.
Yes, we did.
And you were a year ahead of me, right?
I yes.
Okay. Yeah, and that's how we
Yeah.
met. And we have mutual friends, Jean and Dana Vasaleros.
Vasquez.
That's
Eberhard.
yes, okay.
In fact, I just talked to her a little like a week or earlier. Was it earlier this week?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we just got into contact again. I think during COVID, sometimes you reconnect and sometimes, like
You
I
didn't reach
used
out to me.
she reached out to me. And technically we're family,
That's
actually.
true. That's true. That's true.
So, I mean, I don't I think I talk less to my own family. And it's not because I don't want to, but I just sometimes it just makes me too sad.
Too sad. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, we're going to talk about all the sadness, and I want to talk about the sadness and trauma because you are an actor, and as we both know, there's a reason we do that. We gravitate towards that art, right?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily always want to stage traumas, right? But the work that we do, the characters that we play sometimes, there's this place where we have to go, and of course, like take care of ourselves. But yeah, I mean, like we play all kinds of characters, even characters who create trauma.
Mhm.
So
Well, let's go back. Where did it all begin? What? How did it happen? I mean, we know how it happened, but I mean, what? Where did it start? The
what do you
form?
mean, like how I started to perform?
No. Your life. Like, where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up here. Um, I grew up here in where I actually live in Orange County. I grew up in Santa Ana and Anaheim, and I just my I was encouraged to explore things that I really enjoyed, and that include performing. I mean, I think as a kid, I just um, memorized things so that I could just sort of spout them out, and especially like terrible jokes. Like I memorized a whole book on knock knock jokes. And dinner time, I was like, "Here, I got a joke. Let me tell you a joke." And when I was a kid, my mom was really crafty. Not huge cook, but like loved to decorate. I think my mom was an architect in another life. Like she like did a lot of remodeling in our house. My dad also had a construction company. Anyway, my mom took this giant spool, like that they thread cabling, for construction or whatever. And so my mom took it and she like finished it, lacquered it or whatever, and it became like it was this huge coffee table in the middle of our house. And this was in the 70s.
Mhm.
And that was like my stage. That was like my first stage. You know, like it held my weight. I mean, I wasn't huge, but like it was pretty for me. It was like big. Like, and I would get up and I'd be like, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen." So I think it started there, and I've always been drawn to storytelling. You know,
Hmm.
in fifth grade, my fifth grade teacher asked me to write a Thanksgiving play, and I was like, "Write a play? I can write a play," you know.
Hmm.
And at the time, like one of my aunts had been talking to me about like the horrific realities and the hidden histories of what happened to Native Americans who you know, who, what really happened to them, you know.
Hmm.
And so I kind of took that note and wrote this no thank you Thanksgiving kind of play.
Okay.
And so anyway, but that was in fifth grade, and she promised she'd produce it. She did get, I think she got in trouble with the principal
You
because
mean for your play?
yeah, I was, you know,
Really?
yeah, because it really called out like racism and cultural appropriating. But I mean, at the time, I had no idea what I was just like. But this is the story of these Native Americans.
And how old were you?
Fifth grade,
Wow. Okay.
whatever you are in fifth grade. But yeah, that was like the first play I wrote and I directed,
Hmm.
and I got to perform it, and I could tell that my teacher was in trouble, but I don't, and no one had seen the play. We had just been rehearsing it in class during language arts time,
Hmm.
you know, and I would do some choreography during you know recess, you know, and it was just everybody that was in my class that was cast in the show. So it was like whatever, like 25 students were in my class at the time.
And how did they review it? Was
Um, how did they review? Well, I don't know how they reviewed it, but I don't think it went so well with their principal
right, right,
because it was supposed to, like in his eyes, oh, Thanksgiving play, oh, how wonderful.
right. Pilgrims and
Yeah, and it's so
yeah.
funny because every time I watch The Addams Family,
Hmm.
when Wednesday has to go to summer camp, that's like when they redo the telling of Thanksgiving, it is like one of my favorite like moments in that movie because it makes me think of my little fifth grade self. Like I didn't
Right.
realize what I was creating. But anyway, but that was like kind of, you know, my way into to theater and whatever. And I just tend to gravitate to theater and throughout my
You
school.
mentioned storytelling, and you
Uh-huh.
mentioned, but I mean, is there? I'm just going to use a little bit of
You're gonna
example
push me
from.
forward in time.
No, no, no. I'm not pushing you forward. I'm actually. Well, I want to go deeper. I want
Okay.
to go a little bit deeper. And what I mean by that, for
Hmm.
example, the reason I got into acting is
Hmm.
because and I'll try to make it very brief, but I listened to Frank Sinatra, and the reason I listened to Frank Sinatra is because my it was the only thing my father and I could connect with because
Mm.
we didn't have anything in common. He wasn't
Hmm.
interested in even trying to be interested in anything I was interested in, and he would drive me on weekends back and forth between my grandmother's and my mother's house, and we'd
Hmm.
listen to Saturday with Sinatra. And so that's how I started listening to Sinatra. I started singing, and through singing, I joined a choir, and through the choir, I got into musicals and in plays
Hmm.
and so on, so on, so on. So there's a there was a longing to connect with my father, and that's
Hmm.
what got me into performing. And then also the idea of, you know, if I did this, he would watch it and he would see me and be like, "Pay attention, Daddy." So,
Oh.
what I'm trying to get at is there something I feel like all actors have something. There's
Well,
something
I think it was just to escape, you know, like I mean, are you asking me to put my trauma out there?
if you feel comfortable doing so,
Well,
yes.
I think just like I was the youngest, you know, I think I was given the opportunity to play,
Uh-huh.
and it was just my happy place, you
Mhm.
know. I think I mean, at a young age my parents divorced,
Mhm.
and you know, I it was the one thing that I always felt that I could just sort of not worry about anything and explore my imagination. Um, you know, I think also the fact that it was kind of where the all the oddballs kind of ended up, you know, like
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily always see myself in other things. I didn't, like I liked sports, I liked academics, but I never really quite flourished in those areas.
Mm.
And it never just drew my interest. And my mom would always tell me, you never do anything you don't want. That you're always gonna have a problem if you can't, if you ever find yourself in an occupation or a career that you can't do, it's because you don't want it and you don't want to do it. If unless you really want to do it, you're going to do it. So and like, as an actor, as a performer, you have to have like other jobs.
Hmm.
Boy, did I go through them. But no, honestly, I mean, I think it was my happy place. It was the where I could escape when, when you're watching your parents go through a rough divorce, when you're
Hmm.
separated, and and then just like having your mom who was at home with you, and then having to work full time and become really two parents ultimately. And then also, like, your sister, who, my older sister became kind of my surrogate mom in ways. And rather than always having to, like we were, you had to grow up fast. And so I would always find ways to play. Like, even if I was doing chores, like I would turn it into like some sort of like story or game. And my sister would just be like, can you just do the damn chore? And I'd be like, but that's no fun. You know, that is no fun. And I kind of see that in my son. Like, he's just 13, and he
It's
has
been
his.
13 years. Wow.
Yeah, I'm a parent to a teenager who's taller than me now. And yeah, and he's got this incredible curly wild hair. His Halloween costume was Jim Morrison from The Doors.
Really?
Yeah, he kind of resembled him with his crazy moppy curly hair. He has my father's hair. My dad had gorgeous wavy curly, like thick hair.
Mm.
And my husband is kind of losing his, and he's like, "Well, you definitely didn't get my hair genes." But looking at my son and his hair, I'm like, "Oh, you have your grandfather's hair."
Mm.
But anyway, like Noah will sort of invent things, in the humdrum of having to do chores, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that was totally me," and it drives me crazy because I'm like, "Can you just get it done? Can you just get it done?" And my
So now
sister's
you're seeing the other side.
Oh, totally, totally. But I think like in and then also like with trying to explore and be an actor, like that was really exciting because you could see yourself beyond what anyone would assume. It was almost like you could you almost create magic, right? And people are drawn to that. People are moved by what it is that you can create and how you transform yourself, right? But even in that, like, you are limited sometimes, even when you think that you are capable of so much. With all the training that you have, you go out in the world and you're told, or people who put out these casting calls, make assumptions about who it is that you can and cannot play. That also becomes problematic. Like, why can't I explore the thing that I love so much when there is nothing for me?
Mm.
So that in itself, that became a fork in the road for me, and I had to decide what I wanted to do. And I mean, I started this. I mean, everybody, I think, well, not everybody, but most people, acting is the gateway, right? It's where generally everyone
It's
starts.
the gateway drug.
The gateway drug to theater, right? And then they end up finding, and if you stay, you ultimately have to wear other hats, or you find yourself doing other things, right? And that's where I found myself. But I kind of, I mean, I came into my writing more when I was in college, only because, I was always asked, like, who are you? How are you going to market yourself? And I had never really come to terms with my identity because where I
Your
lived,
brand.
my brand, and because where I grew up, I looked like everyone else.
Mm.
But where I went to school, I was like a very small handful, and it was like, well, who do you see on television or in on screen, like who represents you? And I'm like, you've got to be joking.
Hmm. So, like, you're talking the era like the 80s, so it's like Family
90s.
Ties and
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the only people that you would see was, I remember not Maria Conchita Alonso. It was the other Latina actress, and she passed away not too long ago. But like, I married Dora, who was a housekeeper, but I think she was Central American.
Hmm.
But the thing is, I was like, and she had immigrated here, and my grandparents had immigrated here,
Hmm.
and I am second generation, and it was really hard for people. Like, it was either you were white and you were here, or you were an immigrant.
And
And
where did they originate from?
who? My
Your
grandparents
uh-huh.
from Mexico.
But
Um,
whereabouts?
oh, which grandparents are you talking about? And which grandparent?
Well, go through them.
Well, my grandmother so my dad's side of the family, Jerez, Zacatecas, and we still have family there.
In
And they actually,
Oaxaca?
no, Zacatecas and
Okay.
Jerez, Zacatecas,
Okay.
and they ended up in Anaheim, but they had been going back and forth because they had also land here with their family. So my family's been kind of in and out of before this was the United States
Hmm.
on my dad's side, and on my mom's side, my grandfather was from Chihuahua, and my
Hmm.
grandmother was actually from Fort Worth, Texas. And so, but again, family sometimes been here and there before this was United States. So, but anyhow, so because of whatever, I'm second generation, and my parents are first generation.
Hmm.
And so, and I think like with that, there were a lot of stories that related to me. And I just, like I never felt like, I've always felt like I've never quite belonged, because people make assumptions, or even within your own culture, you're also kind of, I'm not from Mexico. I have Mexican heritage. I have family still in Mexico. Depending on the time that you've caught me, like how I would have identified. Like at one point when I was younger, I was Mexican American. It just depends um, on how you sort of see yourself, and then like so coming to terms with that in college, like I hadn't really had to talk about that and identify prior. So when told, you got to know who you are, you got to know what it is, that you got to know your brand, and who do you see like you. And when anyone ever asked me that, I was like, well, why don't you answer that? Like, there's no one like me on film. And every time that I would, I'd have to draw from other examples. And at some point, one of my agents had said, "You're the Mexican American Janine Garofalo."
How did you feel about that?
I was fine with it. I was like, I like Janine Garofalo. I mean, I didn't really give it much thought.
Hmm.
But what frustrated me more was when I would go out to auditions and what I was auditioning for.
Hmm.
And I would ask a lot of questions. And I remember being told, stop asking so many questions.
Hmm.
And I just got tired. Like I lost the joy in what it is that I was hoping to achieve. Like, I don't think I ever really went into it for money. I was like, this is what I love. This is what I want to do. And so I just sort of found myself gravitating to organizations that worked with, to build stories focused on specific communities. And I discovered that while I was in college. And then also just the fact that I was writing. And when I was in college, I found myself um, writing. And when I was asked to write my own monologue for like this experimental project, I wrote it. Um, and I remember my instructor at the time was like, "Oh my God, you're a writer." I was like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
I write. Don't you?"
Was this at CalArts?
Yeah, it was at CalArts,
Hmm.
and
Who
they
was
were
your instructor, if you don't mind me asking?
it was Lou Flormonti.
Okay.
And he was just like, because I really struggled. Like I was like, I don't know who I am here. Like I really didn't, I just didn't feel like I quite fit in. Like I was like, is this really worth it?
Are you
Um,
saying you didn't feel like you fit in at CalArts?
yeah.
Huh. Why do you feel that way?
Why did I feel that way? Because that's how I felt. I mean, I just didn't. I went there and I was like, I was very excited, but I just didn't feel like they knew what to do with me, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Like
Hmm.
honestly. And so, and I don't think they had the resources or the understanding, and neither did I. Like honestly, like I went in blindly with like just these starry eyed like dreams, and I, all I wanted to do is just act. That's all I wanted to do.
Sarah Wilson, she mentioned her experience at CalArts
Hmm.
as a person of color and the racism even there. Was
Hmm.
that a part of it too?
Yeah, I think that was. I mean, it was. I didn't think anybody knew how to speak to me. Like I didn't. The only people that I felt like could get me was when I was in writing groups, and also just writing. Like even when I wrote stuff, it was like you have a voice. And I feel like every time so I kept my writing as an actor because it helped me kind of understand and connect to who I was. Like if I couldn't really articulate it as an actor, at least in a way I was able to discover it as a writer, as a voice. Like I would just, I mean, I think I wrote my first full length play, and I submitted it, and it got accepted in the festival, and it was really encouraging because I felt really excited about creating this play, and it was produced twice at CalArts through the New Plays Festival, and then it got picked up. I forgot what was the other event, and our dean produced it, and so I mean that was really exciting to, but that still wasn't a part of the program that I was there for. Like it was just kind of like I was so excited about it, but it wasn't really anything I could really take with me. I mean, I could, but I remember my mentor at the time was like, but that's not what you're here for. You're here for acting. And I said, well, if I don't have writing, I can't act.
Hmm.
The two I need because I'm struggling with who I am.
Hmm.
And in order for me to really know who I am, I have to keep writing. And I don't know if they really, I mean, I think they got that, like, oh, well, then journal. And it was like, well, I'm writing things because I don't see the things that I want and see myself in, or people like me.
Hmm.
So that was part of it. And that was just sort of like me making those realizations. Like, honestly, like I was, again, I was not interested in being social justice or being involved with theater for social justice stuff. Again, I just wanted to act.
Hmm.
Like I didn't want to protest. I didn't want to, boycott. I just wanted to do my job. That's all I wanted to do. But because there weren't a whole lot of jobs, or the jobs available were terrible. And they were created and not by people of color. So that's where I made the shift. And I found myself drawn to teaching, um, writing, producing, and then eventually just starting my own theater company. And
Now
mhm,
let's go back a little
mhm.
bit. Was there a moment when you were performing, like either it could have been in high school or before that? Was there a time that you were like, this is what I want to do? What was that? When did that moment happen?
um, I think when so I was at another college before I went to um,
Before CalArts, you went somewhere else?
yeah. I mean, I was at a local JC.
Oh, okay.
Because when I graduated from high school, I hadn't applied anywhere, and I went
Hmm.
straight into a foreign exchange program. And my mom was not happy, but honestly, I didn't know what to do with myself. Like honestly, I had no freaking clue. And I saw Lorca in Spanish um, in South America, and I was just like, oh my god, this is fucking amazing. I had read Lorca,
Hmm.
but never heard him in Spanish. And I was like, this is fucking amazing. This is, you know. And so when I came back, I took some, my mom was like, well, if you come back, you need to go, you need to take some classes. You need to do something with yourself, Sarah. And I was like, fine. So I enrolled at the local junior college. And of course, I found myself in theater again. And I wasn't going to. I was just trying to, I was like, okay, maybe I'll be an English teacher. Maybe I'll be an attorney, mom, because you think I should be an attorney. Okay.
Why
But
did she? Why did she want
oh,
that for you?
because of how I would argue. We would always argue. My mom. My mom's also
Okay.
in. It was in law too. So, but anyhow, but my mom knew that I loved theater. Like she never. She was never. She was always good with that. You know.
Does
Um.
she tell stories?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My dad was actually one of the best storytellers.
And what do you feel like made him a great storyteller?
Oh, he was just, I mean, man, he could capture an audience. It was just his charismatic energy. He was also the baby, and I mean, the man lived a really interesting life. He's no longer with us. He's been gone for some time, but I mean, the man told me the best jokes. I mean, they were probably totally inappropriate. Um, and he was just himself. I mean, he really was just himself. And I think that's what people really liked about him. Like he just never put on airs,
Hmm.
you know. And when he and I mean, I remember at his funeral, all of his nieces and nephews, and like even my mom, who they divorced, even her, all of her siblings loved my dad.
Hmm.
My grandmother was crying when my dad died, you know. My grandfather didn't get along with him as well, but my grandmother loved talking to my dad. Like he would, if he was talking with you, he was completely engaged with you, you know. But anyhow,
Very present and vulnerable.
oh yeah, and just funny as fucking hell. You know, I mean, he could make you the butt of the joke too. Like he was witty and sharp, you know. And I think that was kind of growing up in a big family, you know. And he had to. I mean, he had to. I know he endured racism growing up. You know, he was in the Navy, um, and he lived you know, lived abroad for a while too, and just really interesting stories. You know, like he was an interesting man. You know, had some demons, but an interesting man. But anyhow, but so
You can't
storytelling.
gloss over demons.
I will tonight.
Okay. All right.
But what I'm left with is that like storytelling, and even just like my grandmothers, like the way they would tell a story, and it wasn't because they were trying to like capture your attention. It was just the way that people talk to each other, you
Mhm.
know, the way they engage with each other. You know, my it was always just really, I mean, sometimes I would completely be engaged and sometimes I wouldn't, you know. Um, and so I think just the how you tell a story and how you engage with each other is just like just something that was a part of my family.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, not everybody, not that you always had to, not that you could always make time to sit and listen, but I mean, that's one of the hardest things right now is because I love hanging out with my family and talking and sitting with coffee and just like hearing old stories, hearing new stories. Like we do that sometimes through a Zoom, and it's hard because they all talk at once.
Right.
But I miss that. I really, really miss that. And I haven't seen my mom, I think, almost in a year. And
Well,
I mean, we'll talk and stuff, but there's nothing like being in her presence and
I can't
hearing
remember.
her.
Does she live close to you?
No, she lives in Tucson.
Okay, I thought it
Yeah,
was yeah. Okay.
yeah. But where were we? But we were somewhere else in the conversation.
Well, I think you were kind of going from CalArts.
Oh, no, you had asked me. No, I know what you asked me. You asked me.
Oh, the moment.
You know, I think I felt it when I was a kid on stage. Like, just it felt like I knew this and I liked it. I just didn't know I could do it like as a career. Like, I never thought of it as a career. Like, I
Mm,
just knew that this is just where I was. You know, like where I should be, or it just felt like the most natural place to be. You know. Um, and then when I was in college, when I was at a junior college over here, I got cast as a lead, And I wasn't even like trying. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to do ensemble, but I really wanted to just do spot because it paid. And I would get college credit and I'd get paid to do spot. I was like, if you
Mm.
don't cast me, it's okay. I'll just do spot because I know it pays. Because I loved also hanging out with crew. Like I was like, I'm cool. I can do tech. I can do that. You know, I was handling spot for a lot of the shows. You know what I loved is that I would just go hang out. We would party or whatever, and like and I'd go home and I'd have a job. I'd get paid. I'd get college credit. So I was really great about being backstage. Um,
Now, I heard a rumor.
hmm,
I don't know if this is true or not,
heard a
but
rumor.
was there was a time you did clothing optional theater? Was that around this time?
No, this was after. Oh, was it before or was it after? Oh my God, I can't remember the time frame. Holy shit. I think it was right after I got out of college. I did
Okay.
naturist theater. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My friend Jonna Adams, who's a wonderful playwright, now in New York, wrote a series of naturist plays and was like, "Hey, Sarah, would you do me a solid?" Well, it didn't say it like that, but I was like, "Sure, for you, Jonna, anything." So, yeah, I've done naturist theater.
Did you
Um,
like how I did the intro to that? Because I couldn't I was going to ask you if you wanted to talk about that
oh, I
before,
don't care about that. That's
and
fine.
I didn't remember, and so I thought, well, if I did it this way, if I asked it and said it was a rumor, you could say no, that's not true,
Oh,
and then we
it's
move on.
true. It's true, but it's fine. I mean, I have no shame in that. I did it. I was younger. Oh my God, I was like early 20s. So yeah, you do shit like that. You
So
ask me
what
now?
was
Hell no.
say that again? What was the last one?
I said, you're young, you do stuff like that. But you ask me now? Hell no.
So what like no what so when you were offered that, what was your first reaction?
I said, sure. The playwright. If you like your playwrights and you like their writing, I mean, if you don't have any problems with it, then you don't. Then you just do it. Like it's just a body.
Now was it, what was the play? Do you remember?
You know what? I don't remember. It was about this character who was trying to like connect with themselves, I think, and had to just and
Connect
then
with their
just
bodies?
just connect to themselves. And it was a
Okay.
way to just sort of like just let go. Like I think the character was just really uptight and decided to just take this, plunge. And then there was because it was more than one. I did more than one.
Now,
Um,
this was at Lupin.
yes, and also in Seattle.
Now, Lupin, by the way, for those listening and watching, Lupin is a nudist colony in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California.
Yeah. When you engage theater people who kind of have like theater etiquette
Hmm.
and then you got people who just like like when people watch soap operas or television and actors and they sometimes like for like don't get that person's just acting and that's not really them and we have boundaries. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I kind of lost you there for a little bit. You said there was an issue because of the nudity with the.
No, no, no. It wasn't that. It was just like space. You just need space to just kind of prepare yourself.
Hmm.
And it wasn't if no one was ever like inappropriate. Like real naturists are not. They're just it has nothing, it's not even sexual. It has nothing to do with it. It's just being comfortable in your skin. And what is the point to clothing? So I never felt uncomfortable in that way. I was just like, "Hey, can I just have a little space? I need to like get into character. Where's my changing area?
Right.
No, you can't come backstage." They were actually some of the nicest people.
Mm.
They were just, I think sometimes like when I'm, like as a Nate for this character, like, okay, I can take off my clothes. But as a person, like I'm not a natress. I'm not a
Hmm.
natress. I was just playing one for stage.
Right.
So that was where I was kind of like, I'm going to go to my yurt. I'll see y'all later. Peace out. Like I don't necessarily want to sit and eat hot dogs in the nude with all of you. Thank you. and watch your cook over there
Is that all they
cook.
serve as hot dogs?
Well, it
Hot
was
dogs
that.
and bananas and
And then
cucumber.
the cooks it was clothing optional, but they wore
Yeah,
hairnets. They wore
right.
hairnets.
Well, you got to keep
Um,
the hair out of the food.
you
That
got to
makes
keep
sense.
that. Yes, you do.
But do they
Yes.
have hair nets everywhere else?
Well, they were wearing aprons.
Okay, that works.
So, but yeah, like it was, they were never, oh my God, they were like the nicest people and like just so generous and kind and really appreciative, and they were even the ones who produced it when we went to Seattle. They were some of the backers and
Right.
their nature's colony out there. But anyway, no, it had nothing to do with like sexuality or anything like that. It was just like, hey, I'm not the character anymore and I'm not a naturist.
Well, how did it feel though? Like, I mean, it seems like you didn't have an issue being nude, right?
No, I don't. I didn't. I really didn't. I mean, it's just a
But
play.
performing, like being a character, did you feel self-conscious performing though?
No, I mean, I think when you're
How
initially
about
doing it,
cold?
it was warm that
Okay.
day. But when you're rehearsing inside, yeah. I mean, especially when I think, well, you feel, I mean, your scene partners are also not naturists. So they're kind of going through something. So you talk it through and it's like, okay, we're all going to take off our clothes on the count of three. One, two, three,
Right.
go. It's just getting used to each other and
Mm.
being comfortable with each other. And then once that all clicks, then you're good. But again, we weren't naturist. I'm not a
Mm.
naturist. Like I like clothing. I love to wear clothing. I love to accessorize,
Uh,
but I thought that I thought they were very respectful, but I just didn't necessarily want to be in everything because even though you're there for a show, I didn't necessarily want to participate in all the nature's activities.
I hear you. I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't either. I don't. I barely. I don't think I've gone swimming in 20 years. It's been a long time, but the sun has not seen this body at all. So basically a vampire. Um, s- so anyway, so where were we at? So you
I
left
have no
CalArts.
idea. I don't know.
You
It's
left CalArts, and what happened after CalArts?
I think we all do what we do. We're looking for work. We're auditioning. Um,
Did you try
and
film?
you know what? I was never drawn to it. I mean, I auditioned for certain projects and stuff, but I just, my heart was always on stage, but I knew I had to book some commercials. So I did some commercial work, but honestly, like,
Anything I
um,
would know?
I don't even remember what I did, I'll be honest. But anyway, because you know what? You know what I think what was really, really hard is getting asked, were you born here? How did you perfect your accent? Um,
Ah,
is Could you be more street?
oh, okay.
Um, can you do a more Spanish accent? I mean, seriously, those are the kinds of questions. I mean, I mean, when you went on audition, did you get questions like that?
No, no. I mean, that's definitely,
So yeah, and
bias.
I would definitely, and then I would ask like, well, were you born here? And I mean, honestly, it just got like, it would turn into a hostile situation
Really?
because I was annoyed. I was like, really, you got to fucking kidding me? And they
Right.
were like, oh, Orange County, what? Isn't it all white? And I'm like, have you ever been to Orange County? No, I don't go to
Mm.
Orange County. I'm like, well, fuck you. I don't know. Like, and then also sometimes like being Chicana, Latina from Orange County, you're not always embraced by you at the time. At the time, I wasn't always embraced by the existing Latinx community here. Like it was like, you're from Orange County. What are you doing here?
Mm.
There was some pushback. I mean, honestly, the people who know me now, like they're past it. But there's definitely people that have, at the time, they would know like, oh, you're not from East LA, and oh, you must have lived a privileged life in Orange County. I'm just like, what do you know about like just the assumptions that people made and the questions that asked, it just got really like I was like, this isn't my world. This isn't what I want to do. This is toxic. and I found myself teaching more. I found myself collaborating and working with smaller like theater groups, writing, and then I found myself working with doing more theater for social justice, working with organizations and communities that wanted to make change by writing plays, targeting the movable middle, dealing with discriminatory issues that they wanted to address, and that's where I found myself doing work, and then wanting to wanting to see opportunities where I grew up because there was an organization that I had kind of watched and taught at in LA and was just like, wow, I really want something like this for my community. I didn't realize how much more I wanted these things. Like
What
seeing
organization was that?
it was well, remember CAP, Community Arts Partnership?
Uh-huh.
Like, well, I was while I was through that I was at Plaza de la Raza.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw what those kids were like, the programming, what it did for those kids. And I'm like, oh my God, I would love something like this in where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me want to do something where I grew up because I was like, I get what theater does to people, what it does for them, like how powerful it can be, how transformative it could be. And whether or not you decide to become a performer, that is not like a decision I can make, but I feel like it'll just, just the opportunity to engage with your imagination. Like I really loved what it did for those kids. And I saw myself in those kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, oh my God, that's totally me. That is totally me. And I would love to see more kids have this opportunity. Again, you don't have to end up being a performer or in theater, but like how that just sort of grows your options and how you see yourself. And then the way, I mean, these kids were so much more aware of their identity, or at least given the opportunity to be aware of their identity or explore their identity. So I was like, God, that would be really great.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I worked with a couple of other organizations, eventually became the associate artistic director for Teatro Indígena, which was a Chicano theater company here in Santa Ana. And that was wonderful. That was really wonderful. And then
Was
eventually,
there a show there that you were really proud of that was transformative for you and your work?
I think I just really loved what it did for our community. Like I saw, I mean, I loved working with the artists. The artists were incredible in the work that we did, but I loved that people had a sense of ownership of theater from our own community. To me, I've always loved watching the audiences watch the shows. Anything I direct or anything I produce, I love watching the audience watch the show. I love when they're engaged. Then I'm really engaged. Like I'm like we're all on a roller coaster together. And I just hope no one vomits. I just it makes me, it's like when you've gone to Disneyland a lot, and I'm not saying like I go to Disney, well, actually I did because I used to live next door to it. But like
It's
watching the
okay. You can be vulnerable here. It's okay to admit that.
I don't know, like I remember taking my son for the first time to like the amusement park and watching him like totally ignite and feel like he was in the moment. Like that's exactly how I feel about my audience. You know, I love seeing shows. It's a bit voyeuristic, I'll admit, but I love, and then I love hearing what they have to say, and I love hearing the conversations and the dialogues.
You mean like
Like
during intermission?
yeah, or even after. Like I remember we would do post show conversations, before they were kind of I mean, just like I know that like it was just a great way to sort of gather data for grants.
Right. Yeah.
But also like you would build your audience because you're saying hi. I mean I didn't realize what I was doing. I just loved engaging with people, and then they would come back to the next show and they would bring more family and friends. And for me that is what I love. That is my favorite. I mean, as a performer, yes, it is wonderful to feel in the moment and just so like present, and it's almost surreal and out of body. And I know that I can go there if I wanted to, but to see that in others is even more remarkable. Like you're it's not just about you, it's about those around you. And for me, that's what I love.
Let me ask you this. So, what in the beginning you said it was just about the work. You wanted to act, it didn't,
Hmm.
matter.
Hmm.
Where did that change come from where you're seeking, projects with the essences of social justice or something like that? Was it being that you weren't seeing yourself? Was that the main
Part of it,
driver?
yeah, part of that, and then also just knowing how others felt. Like I wasn't
Mhm.
alone.
Right.
And there's also like, oh my God, your situation is even more worse. Fuck, you know.
Right.
Um, so, like for example, one of the last residencies I guided was um, there was a group that I totally wanted to work with, and that's another thing, like building relationships and like like a friend of mine was kind of and was like a mentor to me as well, and a work husband at one point. I remember he would always say um, like you sometimes have these really great ideas or epiphanies, or you see something and it's a butterfly. And what you need to do is you need to catch that butterfly, and then you put it away, you put it in a box, and then you save it for later. Because some days that you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So you open up your box, and there are the butterflies. And maybe one of those butterflies is worth exploring today. And so I feel like in the work that I do, there's a lot of butterflies sometimes that I get to catch. I don't know what to do with them, so I hold on to them. And then I love being able to sometimes go back and open them and then making those connections again.
Mm.
And and so um, and I think um, like in the work that I've done, I've maybe there's some butterflies that have definitely collected some dust.
Mhm.
But like so going back to the last project I did for a theater for social justice, and this was with Fringe Benefit. This is Fringe Benefits, the organization that I still sit on the board for, but I used to be teaching artist for. And so I partnered with my own theater company, Breath of Fire Latina Theater Ensemble, and the local human relations organization here in Orange County. And we engaged with the Dreamers, undocumented high school students. And we worked with them to write a play, and it was about 20 minutes based on their stories and their experiences. And we toured it. And up and down, like they ended up touring it. Like we started it, and then they used the play, and they were able to use it for Senate. Like they performed it in front of senators, legislators, and all of that. And although the Dream Act at the time was not passed, it just brought it more. Like it was like, hey, instead of giving you a pamphlet, instead of talking about it, I'm sharing with you a very specific experience. And in that, all these conversations came out of it. And they were able to bring their work and make it more visible to others. Rather than telling you, I'm going to show you and allow you to process that and come to your own conclusions. And that in itself is so powerful without talking down to anybody, without making your audience feel like they're stupid or thinking they're stupid, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's the trick, is to not turn it into a pamphlet.
Right.
And I love that. And I love taking personal stories or people taking their stories and with maybe sometimes a little artistic license to really share and get a point across without giving an answer. And I think that's really fascinating. And maybe not necessarily always putting out your trauma, but at least like sharing an experience that can be really relevant to others and allow people to talk.
Is there somebody that you've showcased that you're like has been a profound experience for you where it's like this is why I do this work?
I think it's my community. It's the
Mhm.
people. It's really through their responses, and then and not just them watching, but people being able to like write their own stories and share their stories. Like I feel like theater isn't just one way. If we want it to survive, if we want it to have life in places that we feel that don't have access, we have to really let people take ownership of it. And maybe it's not the same way that we've been raised or we've been trained. I mean, those things definitely it's nice to have in your skill set, but you're not necessarily the expert when it comes to things that are people, everyday people. So like, Yeah. That makes sense. Does that make sense? Am I
Yeah,
making
yeah,
sense? Am
yeah.
I making
Yes,
sense?
yes, you are. And well, let's talk about some of the things you've written. Has there been something that you've written that you're really
Excited about?
yeah.
Okay, well, so I'll tell you this. I don't necessarily have get as much time as I used to write. Like
Mhm.
generally when I'm writing, it's because I have to write a response. I've got to write my director's notes. I've got to write um, 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 a reason for funding grants. I'm writing letters of recommendations. I'm writing a response to something because of a project we're in the middle of. Like I've got to constantly talk about what it is that I'm doing, explaining, and not having to explain is a freaking privilege. But anyhow, that's a whole other thing, and
Right.
we can talk about that later. But I was commissioned to write two plays with the Pacific Symphony here in Orange County, and this was back in 2019. And one of the two plays was a totally labor of love, and the other one was just it was an altar play, and it was a way for me to memorialize a dear friend of mine that I absolutely miss, and I think about her a lot. And so, but anyway, so the first play was about and this was Gustavo Arellano's. He conceived this project with them and was like, Sara Guerrero can write this. And if you don't know who Gustavo Arellano is, he used to write the column Ask a Mexican, and he used to be the editor of the OC Weekly, and the OC Weekly is no longer in existence. But now he's with the LA Times, and also just an incredible author in his own right. And he's also one of my neighbors. So and we both our families from Jerez, Zacatecas, in Anaheim, so we have things in common. And so I took his idea and I transformed it into a huge ass play, and then it is supported with, I think, a 20-piece brass orchestra. And I have
Oh
this
wow.
amazing conductor, Greg Flores, who I absolutely adore, who was my
Mhm.
conductor and who and helped transcribe the music for brass. And it was all music by composers from Mexico. And
Mhm.
I'm not as familiar with classical music
Mhm.
or composers from Mexico. So it was a wonderful exploration to learn more about my family roots and my family in Anaheim, and then also like the histories that are often buried. I mean, when you think about what's going on or what went on in 2019, I mean 2020, I mean just the social injustice and the systematic racism. I mean, it's just every time I get asked to write a story or a play about history of Latinx in Orange County, I can't help but uncover so much more injustice and so much more covering up, like under the never-ending development of Orange County. And but anyway, wrote this play, and it was exciting, and it was nothing like I had done in a while. Again, working with a symphony. They've never worked with me. They've never quite put something like this together. And I got to cast it. I wrote it, and then I directed it.
Wow.
Whoa! And then thankfully, an ensemble member as well, Moises Vasquez, who's an amazing musician and composer in his own right, agreed to write some original music with me for this. And we uncovered, like, well, again, a lot of the things that we focused on, Gustavo had written about it through his journalism in the weekly. And one is a corrido writer who, I mean, he could have been, his work should have been in the Smithsonian.
Mm.
But because of who he was, the color of his skin, and the fact that he was not seen as as a person, his work was like, is not will never be recognized in that way. But anyway, but just uncovering some of his corridos. I mean, and thankfully there was some documentation, but like he went from baptisms of the big flood over here He was also an organizer for the citrus strike, which
Mm,
was the citrus strike of 1932 or 36. Oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember. It was historically one of the most horrific in our country's history of union strikes, and it was completely like silenced.
mm,
And out of that, Cesar Chavez's mentor came out of that. And so, and then just knowing some of the stories of my own grandmother and what they kind of went through, and I never really wanted to be like, oh, we're okay, like, but anyway, so writing that, and then, and that was really exciting and really beautiful. And like, while I was still working on that, I then had to write a play about the Day of the Dead. And that was really exciting because that was really a story that I could like personally kind of tell. I mean, that was the other piece was, obviously I was connected to because of the history, but really it was just about taking a lot of the other people's history and doing right by them. I had a lot of ghosts in my house.
mm.
Oh my
Right.
God. I felt like, I was like, is this okay? Is this going to work? Are you fine with that? Can I, you know? But I wrote this play about a family who experiences a loss, and if they and they're visited by the Caterina Calavera, who's kind of become an icon for Day of the Dead, and who's very iconic here in for our Day of the Dead in Santa Ana, and
Hmm.
is sort of is sort of the symbol for our events for Noche de Verdades that is supported by and has been what is it presented through El Centro Cultural de Mexico. Anyway, um, so there was a costume that my dear friend Gina Davidson had designed, and and that sort of that costume became part of the Day of the Dead event. And then she built a second one, and we retired that one, and that one is Breath of Fire's property. And she passed away, I want to say in 2017, 16, 18. God, I can't even. Oh my God, 2016 or no, 2017, 2016. Oh my God. Anyway, it was very sudden that she passed. And so ever since that she's gone, I mean, Day of the Dead was one of her favorite events, and she went to CalArts too.
How old was she
She
when
was
she passed
just
away?
she was just in her early, like I think early 50s.
Okay.
Yeah, she was young. And
And when did she pass away?
in August of, I am terrible with years.
That's
You're
okay. I
lucky.
mean, was it
I
recent or
think
was it
no,
more?
it's been a few years. It's been a
Okay.
few years, but anyhow, it just came out as a shock. And anyway, so I wrote this play, and it was in tribute to her. So it was an altar play. Her costume was up on stage, and so I kind of wrote a little bit so that the person who passes is an aunt, and she was an aunt, and she was an amazing aunt. Like she was the oldest sibling of an Irish Mexican Catholic family, and she grew up here in Santa Ana with me, and she was the one who got me to audition for CalArts.
Mm,
She was like, "You got to do this, Sarah." I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." And she was right. She was absolutely right. She was one of those people. She was just one of those people, and she was one of those people that you always want at the table because she's freaking brilliant.
mm,
Everyone else would be talking, 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 and then Gina would finally say something, and then she would say something that was even more brilliant. It was like,
mm.
okay, that's what we're gonna do. You know, are we time? We at time?
No, no, I don't even know what that is. I don't have a alarm on, so I don't. It was an alarm, but I didn't set it. So,
Um, but she passed, and so being able to resurrect
do you mind if I ask what did she pass away of?
an aneurysm.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry
And,
for your loss.
yeah, thank you. It's still, I, like when the pandemic hit, I was like, when you do the sort of check in, and I know she's gone, but I was like, I'm going to call you, you catch yourself and you're just like, and she's always one of those people that if there was a project that I just needed, like someone just to say, you know what, Sarah, I think you should do it, or Sarah, I think you should pause. She was
Right.
just one of those people that you'd want to talk to and get like her feedback or her
Right.
advice. It's just one of those, just yeah, amazing, quiet, so talented people. Um, so I wrote this play, and it was really exciting because I was able to bring her family to see it. It was performed at the music hall, huge, the Segerster Music Hall. I had 120-piece orchestra supporting it.
That's amazing.
And I mean, and I had families who came, like, they brought their children to learn about Day of the Dead. And it was really exciting because I got to write it as a second generation Chicana. I got to tell a story that I could see and share, that I felt connected to, that I didn't have to talk about Mexico after all this research, right? And I didn't have to talk about a non Chicana experience,
Mhm.
I got to write like, and it just felt so amazing, and I had a
Yeah.
beautiful cast. There was singing. I included the oldest ballet folklorico group in our county to also be a part of it. Relampago de Cielo. They had their dancers on stage. I had a trio on stage. My friend Moises got to play as well. I had some beautiful actors. I had so what happens is the sister is, the family goes through this journey with Katrina to learn about Day of the Dead, because the person who would carry this tradition is dead. And how do we memorialize them? Let's revisit this, or let's learn about this tradition so we can do it in honor of her. We're of Mexican descent, but we don't know all these things. And I didn't learn. I mean, I didn't really practice Day of the Dead until I was much older. I mean, I heard about it, but it was also All Saints Day. It was more through the Catholicism that you
Right.
could celebrate this. Um, but anyhow,
I was in Oaxaca,
mhm.
2012 for de los Muertos, and I was in a little village called Teotitlan del Valle,
Oh, nice.
and it was so beautiful. It was a very
Right.
small that village. It was a small village, so they have a small cemetery, and
Yeah.
I just remember there was music and there was families like literally carrying on full on conversations with the dead, like
Yeah.
literally like having, and it was so beautiful.
Right.
The memorial, the altar, and I mean, I could still see then. So it was just amazing to see the altars were just so incredible.
Yeah.
And like you could see the love, how much love was put into everything that was placed there, and it was just a very profound experience. Are you still there?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I was just listening.
Oh,
But
okay.
no, I know it is. It is. And Day of the Dead is now a favorite holiday. I mean, I love celebrating it with my son. My son, like, he prepares for the holiday as well. And we have our family altar here at home. We put in the things that you're supposed to have. I mean, and the things that we want to have too. I mean, altars are so personal. They really, really are. And
It's also like what they like. The
yeah,
those
oh yeah, oh exactly. It's about them. It's about
yeah.
them. But and so it was really lovely to explore that and share that experience and be able to notate, like, I didn't grow up practicing Day of the Dead. I came into this as a young adult, and I love it, and I wanted to share with you this with you, And
Mm.
I was able to put a dedication to Gina, and there was her costume. It's still like she's still with us. So that was really exciting. And I was like, God, I love this. I freaking love this. I miss writing. Why am I not writing more often?
Right.
And I loved going, and I loved tabling with my art, with my actors, refining it. Like, that thing got so tight. And like,
Mm.
I've been asked to revamp it so that I can eliminate the use of an orchestra, because I also had to build in the conductor, who was lovely. Um, we had this wonderful conductor who was also a character that I had to kind of write in. And so, like, trying to revamp it, just trying to make time to revamp it. And then, but then I had to go back to, like, you're writing, that's great. But eventually I have to go back to directing. And I was getting ready to direct for the University of Oklahoma. And I directed Blood Wedding for them. And that was the second time I've directed Blood Wedding.
Hmm.
And that was again the first show that I went into realizing that I could really do this.
Hmm.
Um, but
And
anyhow,
what made you have that realization?
which one?
You said that that show, you said you knew
Oh, because I was cast in it. Like that was the show that I saw in Spanish in 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 South America.
right.
And then when I came back and I auditioned for something, that was a show that I got cast in, and I was the bride. And I was like, oh my God, I can fucking do this. And I had an amazing mentor director on that, Barbara Covington.
Mm.
And Gina, that's when Gina was like, you need to apply for CalArts. I was like, oh, okay. La, la, la. And I totally did. And there you go. But anyway, uh, so I had to teach and go work with the University of Oklahoma. And that was really interesting. It made me think about seeing myself in them again. Anytime I see kids or, I try to think about like, okay, trying to remember like how I was in their shoes. And anyway, working with them made me want to go back to acting. Um, I had this bug that bit me again. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I know who I am. I'm not expecting, I don't know what to expect, but I just want to put myself out there. And I started to do auditions and I got callbacks. And then the pandemic hit. So I was like, well, that was fun. I guess I won't be doing anything for a while because, I had projects ready to direct and so I didn't have much to do, but then we moved everything online, my organization Breath of Fire, and that really started to generate work. And we went online in March.
Now let's talk about the formation of Breath of Fire. How did that culminate?
Well, just basically I wanted theater I wanted to do theater where I felt most at home and more importantly for someone like myself and others.
Hmm.
So that's how Breath of Fire got formed. And then it didn't really take off until I did a project we had funding, and it turned us into a producing house. And then we launched a Latinx New Play Festival, which then out of that we would do our seasons, and then we were just sort of moving along. We were a volunteer-based organization. We offered honorariums for our artists, and really, I mean, we just tried to keep things at the minimum. But we were producing Latinx plays from all over the country, locally. Um, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. I eventually became a parent with my partner, and it became more difficult because I had a baby and I had to work a day job. I mean, I was actually I was going to stay at home. That I just couldn't. I just couldn't. I just couldn't. I missed working. I missed teaching. It was really hard being a stay-at-home mom, and my partner totally could recognize that. So we worked out something that I would get involved in certain things and teach in certain classes, but it would have to we would just have to negotiate our schedules.
Well, let's talk about this. How have your past relationships and meeting your husband and then giving birth to your son, how has that informed the work that you do?
Well, I mean, I don't think I was ever expecting to settle down. And I don't think I was ever really expected, or I really thought that I was going to be a mom. You
You
know,
mean you mean like a single mom?
no, I just didn't think I was going to be a mom, period.
Okay. I
I
thought
mean,
okay,
I mean,
I misunderstood you. I thought you said you didn't expect to settle down, but you did expect to be a mom.
no, I didn't expect to be a mom. I did
Okay.
not. Oh,
Okay.
I wasn't planning to have a family.
Okay.
I was just going to do my work. But I'm so happy that I have my son. Like I don't know what I would do without him. I think
Right.
he's made me a better person. I don't know if I'm a better parent. I try. That's hard. Parenting is freaking hard. It
Yeah, it
really
is.
is. It is. It is. And I'm very fortunate for the partner I have because we can both identify in the same ways, but at the same time, like it's nice that we also have um, different perspectives because I think it helps create balance for the both of us.
Right.
You know,
How
I
long
mean,
have you been together?
oh my God, I think it'll be 20 years this year.
Oh, wow. Are you
Yeah,
serious?
yeah,
20
yeah,
years?
yeah. 13-year
No
old, 20
way.
years. Yeah, yeah, 20 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, congratulations.
Thank you, thank
So
you.
how do you make
Well,
it
I
work?
don't. It's not 20 yet, but we're getting there. I think it's towards the end of this year that it'll be 20. I think. Yeah.
But how do you make it work?
I think we just give each other enough space. You know,
Typical
okay,
during
I'll tell you this.
COVID-19.
Well, I'll tell you this. The man built me a theater.
He
Breath of
did?
Fire, yeah, Breath of Fire did not have a space if it wasn't for him. We had a space. We had an office building. We had two offices, and I mean, he helped knock that wall out, and he helped. I mean, he's in the business as well, but and I mean by like permits and construction and knowing all of the union
Right. He's an
stuff.
electrician. Yeah.
Yeah, master electrician.
Right.
Um, anyway, and so like he transformed with Lonnie Alcaraz, who's a lighting designer, head of lighting at. I have this little toggle. Why do I keep playing with this damn toggle? Um, with Lonnie's knowledge of also because if you're a lighting designer, you have to be a master electrician. So between the two of them, but really, Bill, you know, some women get rings, some women get things, jewelry. Etc. I got a theater space. Can't complain. And then what is it? I now have an office space because of him as well. Like the space that I'm in is
So
separate from my house.
so what
So
you're
he
saying is what keeps your marriage together is construction.
yes, yes. Um, I think we just get each other. Like he's not, what is it? He's like the Warner Brother frog. Like he's really funny. He's
You mean like
entertaining.
"Hello, my honey, home"? That
Well, I don't
one?
know about, well, not exactly, but yes, yes. But anyway, but like if you could never put him on the spot, you cannot put him on the spot.
Okay.
He has to just feel comfortable in his own, but funny as hell. He helps me not take myself so serious because I can totally take myself too serious.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, I think it's a space. I mean, we both were like, "Oh my God, we're going to be parents."
Hmm.
What the fuck? I mean, we still kind of laugh about it. We're like, "Oh my God, we're responsible for someone. How is that possible?" But we are.
Right.
And our kid's pretty cool. I mean, as long as he doesn't like murder anybody, he's happy. He's a big animal lover.
Right.
That sounded awful. That sounded awful. As long as he doesn't murder anybody. Um,
Well, I mean, no, I understand.
my expectations are pretty low, huh? What does that say about my parenting? Um, no, but
But
I was, but so how we survive. I think really, I feel like if I'm fortunate to have him in my life because I don't know if I could have done this pandemic with anyone else.
really,
I miss
are you talking about your husband or are you talking about Noah?
my husband
Oh, okay.
and Noah. I mean, I think I drive him a little crazy. My son, my son was just like, Mom, he's a teenager. He's a
Right.
teenager, but he's
Is he
the
doing
sweetest.
theater?
No.
What does he want to do?
Oh, he's just, I don't know. He's like, please, Mom, give him a space. I know that he loves gaming. Like he loves gaming,
Okay.
and that's how he finds his way through stories through gaming. Like he's
Hmm.
done. He likes to take photographs. He likes to illustrate. He plays the piano really well. He's played for
Oh,
some
really?
time. Yeah, he's a piano player.
That's
He
great.
he doesn't consider himself a musician. He's just like, I'm just doing it, Mom. I'm just doing it.
Does he read music?
Yeah, he reads
That's
music.
great.
He has lessons twice a week because it's all online, and he dances ballet folklorico,
Hmm.
all online. Everything's online, and he's learning online. And he actually I think he took it pretty well. He's like low maintenance kid, but
Well,
just getting him to do sometimes his chores.
but he's making it theatrical, right? That's what you said. He's
Oh yeah. Oh, that he'll like talk. He'll be like, okay, that's where he does. Yeah, that's where he does. But I'm like, okay, dude, can we get this done in like 10 minutes? Because I got to jump on a Zoom meeting.
right.
But
So you're getting through the pandemic, okay?
I think I'm doing as best as I can.
Right.
It's some days are really great and some days are fuck. Like
Yeah.
it's
Apocalypse fatigue.
yeah. It's like
Yeah.
I fucking hate it. I fucking hate it. But so what I was gonna say is, so during the pandemic, I couldn't direct as much, or I didn't have my contracts, or or wasn't able to do the shows or whatever, and but eventually found my way back to theater through Zoom, whatever this is, right?
Hmm.
But I wrote, and I wrote a full play.
And what is it about?
It's a coming of age play about a young girl who grows up in Anaheim, California in the 90s and doesn't make the best decisions and finds her magic. So, and it's called Have to Believe We Are Magic. She roller skates too.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's a full 2 act play, um, and I've submitted it, and I've had in-house readings of it, and I really enjoyed writing it. Like it's a play that I've been wanting to write.
Hmm.
This play is probably older than my son, but it's slightly biographical,
I
and
was just about to say that. I assume that's probably
and
what it was.
yeah, but it also it's sort of like a tribute to like people that I grew up with in Orange County in the 90s.
Hmm.
Like it's a little nod to how we grew up, and I really enjoyed writing it. Like it was originally a screenplay, and it was a large it was a the cast was different, the focus was a little different, but as it moved to, I would touch upon it here and there, but again, like I got to direct, I got to teach. If I'm writing, it's mostly for commissioned work.
Hmm.
So anything more personal is sometimes just, it takes the back burner, or I'll journal, or, like again, catch the little butterflies and put them in my box.
Hmm.
Hopefully go to them, or find them another day. And so, like, being able to write again was so exciting. And I have, through my theater organization, we have a Thursday night group, and we've been meeting since I think March, April, and we're still meeting every Thursday night. Like sometimes you can't go, sometimes you can go, but we meet up every Thursday and we read pages. And that's how I got through the pandemic, was
Hmm.
because of the frickin' writing and these Thursday night meetups. Um,
Right.
our literary director, Diana Bourbano, who's also an amazing playwright and actor in her own right as well, um, um, was the one who was like, "Let's do this," and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" And so the group now just sort of is take kind of like, there's a few members that sort of host, but every Thursday, and they bring pages, and some amazing work has come out of that. Like we've had, I want to say, 9 or 12 in-house readings, including my play, and it was so exciting because then you bring in the amazing actors that to come and read and just like bring it to life, and like with little to no preparation, because you're just there to hear it, right? um and then out of that, it's I the when I finished the first draft, it was about 70 pages. The next draft, about 120, and then it went to 160, but then I transferred it to final draft, and it's back down to 120, so it's in the sweet spot of under 2 hours. So, and it was just again so fun because this character's not she's female, she's not so likable, she's just it was you know really filling out who these characters were as a writer, thinking, hearing them and listening to them and letting them just sort of lead was just so much fun. It was like my happy place. in
That's
this
beautiful.
pandemic. And I know writing wasn't always accessible to like friends that I know that I work with as a director, um, for them in their development. So I didn't like put it out there. I'd be like, hey, I'm writing a play. Let me just rub that in your face. But it was my saving grace. If I didn't write that, and then out of that, I'm writing three other plays.
Now,
Um,
the one you're writing that you've just written, is that, are you going to perform it via Zoom or what?
No, no, no. I wanted to get picked up by a theater company. I know it's going to take some time, but right now, what I really would love is it to get workshopped in a festival.
Okay.
Like I've done a couple of in-house readings with it just because I've had to like figure out where it was going. But the draft that I have right now is my submission draft. And I feel confident that it's gonna, like I mean, I don't know if and when it'll get produced, but I feel like there's got to be a reading out there.
Right.
And I've had really great feedback from playwrights and literary folk that I know that were like, okay, yeah, this is a really good draft, Sarah. I like this. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, it could be a hit or miss, but I feel really confident about about this draft. And not to say that I don't need more work, because you do. Like,
Mm.
hey, when you have actors, when you're, that's what I want next. I want to be supported as a playwright to go into a room, have the dramaturg, the director, and the actors, and let them do their job. Me have my questions, write notes, take notes. If they have questions, I would love to just sit in that chair without being the producer, without being the director, without being the actor. I just want to be the writer and sit in the room because I'm really enjoying that. And I love being there for my writers, but I'd also like to sit in their shoes for just once, and I've had that when I was doing the work for the symphony, and that was really exciting. And I would love to revisit that again. And I'm also in the middle of directing three projects right now. I just wrapped up one for Center Theater Group. I'm jumping into one for Cal State Fullerton, and I'm doing one for Queens Theater in Queens, New York,
Wow.
starting tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm directing a playwright that I love working with, as well as Augusto Amador, and I'm going to direct his Atacama, which
Mm.
I've done more than one Zoom reading of that play. Um, Fresno is another play of his that I've directed for readings as well, and so another playwright, yeah, that I like to read, Diana Bourbano, Augusto Amador. I mean, there's definitely playwrights that I love to read their work. I don't always get to work with them, but like getting their pages, being there for them, because whoever, I mean, it's nice to have those circles, and it's important to support those networks so that when you want a little support, you can be like, hey, remember I read your pages. Can you read mine?
So I have three questions before we
Sure.
close up.
Yeah.
The first question is, what is behind you?
What
And
is
can you
behind me?
describe it? Your
I
artwork.
can show you and I can describe. So I'm showing the audience if they're seeing it.
Mhm.
It is so I did a theater for social justice residency in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and this was like in another life. It feels like way, but I think before I met Bill, before I had a family. Anyway, I was working with Cynthia Ruffin, who was in New Mexico at the time. This was through Fringe Benefits. And we were writing a play with the Rape Crisis Center and the LGBTQ community organization or group. I don't remember if there was a center associated. Anyway, we were writing a play, and we went into the store, and this work just went up. It was like a little. It was in this little odd shop in Santa Fe, and there was actually three of them, but I didn't have room in my suitcase for all three, and I didn't have enough money for all three. So I bargained, and I got these two, and I was able to put them in my suitcase.
Mhm.
And they're women who are they're full figured women. Um, some may call them women of the night.
Mhm.
Some may say they're just on a walk, but they are wearing fishnets
Mhm.
and which are thigh high. Well, they're with fishnets with garters. One is sort of hugging a light pole with one cigarette in her hand, and she's got a lot of cleavage. She's got a lot of
Mm,
cleavage. And then, and her dress is turquoise, and her
mm,
fishnets coordinate. They're turquoise fishnets. And then the other woman, we're seeing her backside with just a hint of her panty, which
mm,
is, I think, white. And she's got one arm up, and she's wearing pearls. Actually, both of them have pearls on.
mm,
And her dress is kind of a rose, a dusty rose, and it looks like she's just sort of giving a side eye.
mhm.
And they're my guardians.
Now, you say some people say that many things about those. What do you feel? Like, did you feel the interpretation that about what others say
Oh,
is?
I just call them my guardians. They're my ladies. They hang out with me. They check on me to see if I'm doing my job. They keep me company. They used to be in my living room, but I've always wanted them in an office space.
So are you saying you need erotic guardians around you?
They're just women. I wouldn't. I mean, yeah, they're erotic, but I don't necessarily know. I mean, shoot. If when I'm at home, if I don't have to, I don't wear most of my clothes. But unfortunately, I have a
You
13-year
are
old boy
so you are a nudist at heart.
in my house. Well, I don't. I mean, in the pandemic, come on. But I can't walk around in a t-shirt all day and my chonies because my 13-year-old will be like, Mom,
Right,
but the
right,
kid is in his underwear most of the time. I mean, my husband
right.
and between my husband and my kid, they're always in their underwear. So one day I came out, I mean, I had a t-shirt on, I was wearing my underwear. My son was like, Mom, and I'm like, dude, you are always in your underwear. Now you know how I feel. But
Okay.
um, but I was gonna say, so now I have my office space. So
Right.
the second space my husband built is my office. My office is separate from my house. It is my own little space.
Can I ask if did he get in trouble and is that why he had to build the your office
No,
at the okay, I just want
no.
to make sure this is okay.
I think he just wanted all my shit out of the house, like
Oh,
my
okay.
office, my work. Because I used to. So my organization, Breath of Fire, we are resident artists of Cal State Fullerton's Grand Central Arts Center, and we
Mhm.
have a lab space. Well, I could, which means I could have an office space and
Right.
do my work there. But because of the pandemic, I don't have a space to work in.
Right.
So, and generally, like even when even before the residency, before the office, like I'm at home doing work, and my son isn't here. My son's at school, but now it's the two of us and my we have a small little house, and my husband was like, you're always working from home at some point. He's like, you should just have your own office. And
Right.
our property's big enough. So I want to say we had been planning it, and finally we broke ground, and it was done a little before fall,
Hmm.
or around, no, actually at fall. And so I was finally able to move in, and it's got my furniture. It's got the desk that my mom bought for me when I got my first commission.
Right.
I got a commission just as I was graduating from CalArts,
Hmm.
and we were at a little consignment store, and she's like, "Oh, Mija, you need a writing desk."
Hmm.
And then I came home, and there it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I still have it. She's beautiful. Anyway, what was your other question?
So my next question is, can you name a moment where you have loved beyond your fear? This is
Okay.
actually the first time I've ever asked this to anybody I've had an interview with. So this
Beyond
is an
my
exclusive.
fear. So I have to name a fear and what I've loved beyond it.
Yeah. If you can think of, this is an experiment for me, by the way.
Oh God. I'm trying to think of what I think I think when I was gonna have a baby.
Mm,
I think having a child, I was so fucking scared.
right.
Um that wasn't fun, but it didn't I don't even think about that anymore, you know? Um I think also we had a COVID scare, and I've had cancer scares. Like just my sister's a cancer survivor, and my mom's going through that right now. So like I just had my results, and I'm good. Like I'm good. Not knock on wood, but like
That's a relief.
My 74-year-old mom is going through it right now, and she's in Tucson, and we and I can't see her and I can't be with her. My sister feels the very the same, and my sister went through the same thing, and she's so full of knowledge,
Mhm.
and she's my best friend, and I can't always be with her because like it's not like I'm around people or anything, but I just to be safe, and I even though we're just a city apart, like yeah, like is watching people lose a lot of people, losing people. My husband still has to leave the house and work. And
Mhm.
so we have precautions as well. I mean, there's so much fucking uncertainty. And my son doesn't even want to be around people, you know? Like
Yeah.
he's like I bought new face shields and I bought those what do they call it?
N95s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, like I also bought some to donate to a couple of organizations just because I was like, I don't want to be the one who bought a bunch of them for my asshole self, and I don't really go anywhere. But I mean, like I got face shields because I have to. The university I'm working with is we are going to be filming live in
Right.
person. So at some point, I got to be in the room with my students,
Right.
my actors. So I'm like, then I have to come home and be around my family. And I didn't. I said yes, thinking that we would be further along. And even there, I mean, there's precautions that they're taking, and we have a COVID manager on site. But I had this long conversation with my husband, and I was like, hey, if you want me to cancel my contract, I just won't. He goes, I think it's something you should explore, Sarah. He's like, I trust you, but know that like just take the precautions that you need. I mean, I'm even thinking about sleeping in my office to safeguard them. That means I got to put a bucket outside for something.
Are either of them in an at-risk category?
No, they're not. But I'm going to be around people at some point,
Right.
and I know that everyone's trying to take their cautions. But it's like when you drive on the road, you can be the safest driver, but you're driving next to the most reckless person.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so you can do all that you can. I mean, I caught COVID, and I thought I was being careful, and I had a mild case of it, and I'm happy that I didn't have to go to the hospital. But just the anxiety of giving it to your own child, your own spouse, or your partner, or your family, that is, you know,
Yeah.
it sucked. And I, you know, every time I look on my social media, I find somebody that I know who's lost somebody,
Yeah.
and it's heart wrenching. And I think in this time, I mean, like trying to be grateful, be mindful. There are people that are worse off than and how can you be less of an obstacle? You know, I don't know. But I mean, there's so many things that scare me daily. Going to the
Right.
market. I
No,
have to go to the market. Oh God.
so what were the symptoms like? Did you lose your sense of taste and smell
You
and
know what? I thought I was having really bad allergies.
ah,
I was like, God, this is awful. And my our doctor was like, I think you have COVID. And I was like, are you sure?
well, I
And
mean, you had runny nose and like,
it was like it was just like a really bad sinus headache and sinus like because I at that time I generally have my allergies, like I
mm,
just thought, but it was a little worse. And then I had a fever, and
okay,
I don't generally have a fever when I am with my allergies. And I was instructed to take a buttload of vitamins, all kinds of vitamins, and then I took an anti-inflammatory drug, and I took anti-fungal. Is it fungal? Yes. And then it was at this one. It was like this moment where my body felt like I was like fighting something, and I just remember feeling a little out of it, and I feel like my memory has been affected most by it. I
now
also have I also have mommy brain, so I'm like,
what is mommy brain?
like you just forget, like when I was pregnant, I would just like completely I was directing a show at the time, and I didn't know I was pregnant, and my assistant director who knew me was like, God, you are so forgetful, are you okay? And I couldn't drink coffee, and I was like, I don't know what's going on with me, I don't drink
Right.
coffee. And then I figured out that I was pregnant. I was like, and they're like, that's why. And it feels like sometimes I feel cloudy.
I didn't realize that was a symptom of pregnancy.
Well, in my case, but what I mean by being cloudy is when be having COVID.
Right. Now, did you get tested to confirm it, or was
Yes,
it okay?
and they could. It was, and every test I took was inconclusive.
Really?
Yeah, and then eventually I went in for my antibodies, and it showed that I had it.
Ah, I see.
So, um, but um,
So you
but
did the antigen first and then the antibodies after?
yeah, um, but again, like my fear was like, I'm going to give it to Noah, I'm going to give it to Bill.
Right.
I was like, fuck. And honestly, but this is so funny is that I think Bill actually had it in February, because late January, early February, because he got super, super sick.
Mm,
And my aunt, who's my son's pediatrician, she's an amazing doctor, by the way. She's actually the one who still sees us because it's sometimes hard to get appointments with their own doctors.
mhm,
Anyway, because when I was still in Oklahoma, and Bill is actually from Oklahoma, his family's
mm,
from Oklahoma. So he and Noah flew out my last week there and came out and spent some time and to catch the opening of my show. And Bill like wasn't sure if he was going to make it. I've never seen him so sick. Like we would have FaceTime calls, and I was like, "Honey, are you okay? Are you going to be okay to travel?" Like he was awful. And then he came. He I picked them up from the airport, and Bill was still recovering, but he just did not look that good.
mhm,
And we were going to go opening. He was going to be my date for opening night, and I was like, "Why don't you just stay?" Because he couldn't stop coughing,
mhm.
and it took him some time to really get over that.
Right.
Even when we got back, um, and so he never had his antibodies checked or anything. But my aunt was like, I think he had COVID because his symptoms were very like he had no sense of taste. He couldn't smell.
Did he have the
Um,
muscle weakness?
And I don't think his was as severe again as some people to be put in the hospital, but he had definitely the symptoms. And it was like, is this, what kind of flu is this?
Right.
As we're learning about COVID. But so my aunt's like, I think he had it. I think
Right.
he had it. And so like now when looking back, I'm like, God. But so going through it, I was like, I just hope I don't give it to anybody. And I'd feel so fucking awful if I did. And thankfully
Right.
Noah was fine, and so was Bill. So
Right. Well, I'm relieved that you recovered well.
thank you. Me too.
So my last question
Hmm.
is, what do you feel your work is as a theater artist from now on at this point in time? Has it changed since Trump administration and and with COVID, like,
Well,
and climate collapse and so on?
well, I feel like it's so funny because just recently a journalist had sent a question about like, oh, were you affected? How were you affected? Like, did you lose money? Did you lose revenue? You didn't get to do your season, your show. And I was like, so I responded and I was like, we're not your typical theater group. We don't, we're an incubating space. You've known us. Like, why are you asking me these things? But I was like, I think being a culturally specific, woman driven theater organization with a very with we're very resourceful, we're very resilient, but we don't have the big budgets, and we serve voices that aren't necessarily represented on stage. So I feel like even with Trump, we were always dealing with shit.
Right.
Like I think it just came to more to light for others.
Hmm.
You know, like like I remember like watching SNL, and I think they had Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock.
Hmm.
And there's a group of people like, oh my God, I can't believe how racist and how unjust United States are. And Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle are like, where have you been living?
Right.
So I
Right.
kind of feel like, you know, like there was a moment where I kind of stepped away, always doing social justice theater.
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't because I didn't want to. I just wanted to just sort of open myself to other opportunities. But it's always been in my back pocket, and I think the stories that I've been naturally drawn to are just that I want to hear the stories that I haven't heard yet. And it just happens to also be, the voices in my community. Um, so I think it's given me more of a, I think it's reminded me. I think it's also helped me make say no to things more. You know, and I don't. And I mean, there's also like also owning my own compliance and my own what is it supporting a system like this, like the work, some of the choices in the as a because I've been a leader in projects and I've had to make powers that be that are often white happy,
Hmm.
you know. But now I feel like because I wasn't so wrapped up in an institute when all this happened, I felt like free. I'm like, thank God I don't have to worry about dealing with all of that. Like I have the freedom. I mean, I don't necessarily always have the resources or the money, I should say the money. It's not that I can't be resourceful, but like I still don't have the donors that these bigger organizations have and want. But I also like don't have to work with them. Like I could, I'm, and I still really, and it really made clear, like the things that I already know are true. You know, this has definitely shown how the disparity, the inequality, it pisses me off, and I think like, wow, I probably could be using my time to help like doctors and nurses, but I do theater, so sometimes I feel a little helpless, you know. But then I recognize how healing it is to, because even though we went online, we didn't necessarily, not everybody has access, you
Yeah.
know. Um, like I just did this project about essential workers that are youth, youth essential workers that just like graduated in 2020, and we
Hmm.
actually cast real Santa Ana youth who were helpful in making this play happen. Like or providing information. Our playwright is Diana Bourbano. Anyway, so I directed this, and so because we're doing it on Zoom, I had to drop off stuff because there's things that they needed. We had a budget. I'm like, sure, what do you need? What you got? Green screen, got it. But then I would drive through the neighborhood, and I was like, and you'd go through some of the nicer neighborhoods, and those aren't where those kids live.
Hmm.
They live in the most dense neighborhoods, the places, and then in our community we have percentages of how many deaths are in certain zip codes, and those are the zip codes. Even my own zip code,
Hmm.
like just down my street, I know that over 10 people have died from COVID. I don't know all my neighbors, but like it's really just it's just like that's
Scary.
it is. And then the richer neighborhoods, like it's they're not affected.
No.
Um, but I know that you have to mask wearing is required in Santa Ana.
Right.
But like yeah, the disparity, it's really clear. So when people ask me about how things have changed, I'm like, dude, we've been living in this. It's clear for others. And I'm happy. And I'm happy to see that there's more opportunities, and that I hope that there is change, because whatever we had before was not working, you
Right.
know? So if that answers your question.
It does. And Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here with me and sharing what is alive within you. Um, is there anything you'd like to share about upcoming projects, how to find you?
Oh, okay. How to find me? Well, if you want to find me, my website is www.teatro, which is teatroguerrero.com. It's my personal website. Teatro is Teatro Guerrero, which is my last name, Guerrero.com. And that translates to Warrior Theater. My last name is Warrior.
Beautiful. Is
And,
there
and, and, and if you want to get a hold of Breath of Fire, it's breathoffire.org.
Excellent. Excellent. So thank you so much, Sarah. Love you very much. It was great to reconnect with you after all these years. And everybody who's listening and watching, thank you. And you can find me on the blindmaninblack.com, Apple Podcast, and YouTube channel. All right, now we're going to have an awkward ending.
Is this
So
when we say all of the curse words?
if you want to curse, you're welcome to.
Oh, it's okay. Fuck yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Fuck yeah. All right.
Chinga tu madre.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry. Not your mom. Not your mom.
What, Mom?
Never mind.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Thank you. It's not, see, it's awkward. I can't get to it.